Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our next lesson in STEM Lockdown Digital School. I think you have probably all been informed that today you can only chat privately to me. So if you have questions, you can send them, or answers if I ask them. You can send them in the chat, but everybody else can't see them. And that's because of all those lovely trolls that we've been seeing. So I see already this morning somebody's asked me how would I display numbers in an output under a tab stop. We're actually going to cover that today. Okay, so welcome to Information Technology Grade 10. And as always, my name is Karen Anderson. So what are we looking at today? As I mentioned, we're looking at spacing your output in a rich edit. So very often the way that it's phrased in a test or an exam is that it would be display the output in columns in the rich edit. And as soon as you see the word columns, you know that you need to set tabs. And we're going to go through the process of setting those tabs. Then we're also going to have a look at using constants. Now, you know about variables, and hopefully you all know that a variable is a value that can change. So a constant is going to be the opposite of that, a value that can't change. And then, although I've referred to these tips before, I just want to give you a few more tips regarding when you see the word dialog boxes in a test or an exam, because there's a second option. I've said to you an input box, but wait, there's more. So let's have a look. When you are asked to display data in columns in a rich edit, you are going to need to set tab stops if the defaults don't display the output neatly. So if you go and you answer a question and you output everything that you're told to, and it ends up looking like this, then you know that you need to set your own tabs. You can see, if you look at these two, you can very quickly see that the top one is untidy and messy and your user's not going to have a clue what's going on. Whereas this one over here, it's very easy to see that your output is nice and neat under the headings and it's all lined up. Okay, so this is what they mean when they say output into columns, and it means that you will probably have to set tabs. So, how do you know how many tabs to set? Okay, so here, if I look at this one here, I'm displaying the num, the name, and some sort of an outstanding amount, which I'm going to get to just now. So, this example has 3 columns. So how many tabs do I need to set? Remember, you can still chat to me privately and I will still see your answers. Yes. Oh, wait. Okay, so some of you have got it right and some of you have got it wrong. Okay. If I want 3 columns, I actually only need to set 2 tabs. Why? Because the first one is output up against the end of the rich edit. It doesn't need a tab. So it's only going to be just like when you're typing in a word, type the first thing, press tab to get to the next one, press tab to get to the second one. So it's always number of columns minus 1. Okay. Yes, we would use the ASCII code for the tab. I'm going to show you now exactly what's involved. Okay, so the first one is up against the side. I'm not going to have a tab there. So how does the code actually look? So, I've got a frog in my throat this morning. Sorry, guys. The code says read output. So name of the component, dot paragraph. Okay, so we're referring to the paragraph property, dot tab count, and tab count is then a method, gets the value of 2. So here I'm saying, listen, Delphi, I am now setting, sorry, my own 2 tabs. So first of all, I say I'm going to set 2 tabs. Then I set the tabs. And you have to remember that our components in Delphi start their numbering from 0. So I go read output, dot paragraph, dot tab There's my square brackets again, indicating an index. 0 gets the value of 20. Okay, so this means I'm setting my first tab stop, which is numbered number 0, to 20 pixels away from the left of the rich edit. Then I have to set my next one. So now I say read output dot paragraph dot tab 1 gets the value of 150. So my second tab, so the first one here is set to 20. The second one is set to 150. Okay, so 150 pixels away from the left of the rich edit. And then, because we have to make it look nice, we do our heading. And the way that we activate those tabs is to type #9. Now, yesterday I showed you that #10 is used to force what comes after it onto a new line. #9 is is the same as pressing tab on your keyboard. If you went to go and have a look on your ASCII table, you would see that the ASCII value for 9 is a tab on your keyboard. So that's why you type #9, which means that it's going to push the word name 20 pixels on, and then you say plus #9. So now it's going to push the word outstanding 150 pixels over. So this is now just setting my tabs and putting my headings in. And this I will do in the onActivate event of the form. So in other words, I set those tabs when my program loads. Okay. Instead of #9, you could just type a plus and then the press tab. No, that's not going to work because that will just tab your Delphi code. Okay, remember, in order to tell the code to do something, you've actually got to use the #9. If you just press tab in your output, it would just tab the code in the unit. Okay, right. So let's have a look at some of the things that I've already said and cover a few more extra tips as well. Each tab is numbered by Delphi starting at tab number 0. So tab 1 is numbered 0. Okay, you put the code, what, the #9 code, you put in your output. So where you the #9 is what makes it move the text on. Okay, the same as #10 makes the text move on to the next line. Okay, right, the tab stop is always measured from the left of the rich edit. Therefore, the first tab, 0, value must be the smallest number, and the second one will be a larger number. Okay, you set each tab after the tab count, but before the heading. So you first have to say, Delphi, I'm setting 2 tabs. Then you say what the tabs are. Would you have to know that tab 0 is equal to 50 and the same with tab 1. I'll show you now some tips for knowing how to actually know what it is. Okay. So set how many tabs, say how many tabs you're going to set. Set the tabs, then do the heading. If I put the heading in before I set the tabs, then these words would be in the wrong place. Okay. So here is a guideline for how big to set your tabs. If you're outputting numbers, you're going to set your tab to approximately 50. Okay. Do you put the whole code in the, what do you mean by the beginning? You put the whole code in the onActivate event of the form. Yes. So when your program loads, you put this in. Okay. If you're outputting strings, then you set the tab to be between 100 and 150. And sometimes there is trial and error involved. So you may have to set your tabs to something, and then when you run your program and test it, you'll see that it doesn't look quite right. Then you just go back and you change these numbers. Okay. Okay, I'll show you the form. Somebody's asked me to show the previous slide again, which I will do when I'm finished here. Okay. I just want to quickly, sorry guys, I had the chat window open on my screen, which means that sometimes it covers what I'm talking. Okay, so when you set your tabs, if you say read output.paragraph.tab0 gets the value of 50, then your tab stop is there. So typing #9 means that the text will start there. If you set the next one at 100, then it's going to stop over there. Okay, so let's quickly go back here. So here is the code. If you need to set tabs that you will put in the onActivate event of the form, tell it how many tabs to set the 2 tabs starting from 0, and then put the heading in, and the words that you're putting for the heading are separated by a #9, because that's how you actually tell it to move to that tab stop. Okay. Okay, on activate event of the form, I will show you, Nana, when we look at the actual program. Okay. Right. Now, another important thing to take note of is when you clear the rich edit. So in your reset button, if you now want to clear the output of the rich edit, then you're going to most likely clear the tabs as well. So it's good practice. Like I said yesterday, there we go, thank you. Okay, so Adrian tells us it's also on page 43 in the Delphi book. So those of you that have got the Dandelion Delphi book, I'm working from page 43 if you want to follow with me. Okay, so you need to copy whatever you've put. Remember I said it yesterday, whatever code you put in the onActivate event of the form, you need to copy it and paste it into the reset button. Okay, and then you need to set the tabs after the code that you've put in to clear the rich edit. Okay, so you clear it first and then you put the setting the tab stuff. But we're going to have a look at an example anyway so that you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so let's have a look at a few potential queries that you may have. So if you suddenly find yourself in a position where you've got a problem, yes, I will. Okay. If your columns are not aligned, so if you have a look at the sample output, you will see that I've set number over here, wouldn't need a tab. Then I've put in a tab for cost, and then I've put in a tab for my heading for area, but the area value has ended up in the bottom line. Now, maybe I like my spacing. So what this means is that your rich edit is too narrow. So you would have to make the rich edit wider in your design, and then the tabs will work. But remember that if you find this in a test or an exam, you're not allowed to resize or change the components. So then you would have to change where you set your tab stops. And maybe this one would have to move over a little bit, and this one would have to be a little bit less. Okay, this over here, do you see that the first one is spaced really nicely? But because this guy's got a longer surname, it's thrown the percentage out so it looks ugly. So that means that your second tab stop, this one here, is too short. And you will need to make tab 1 a higher number. So you're going to have to push the whole percentage column over so that Mr. Janse van Rensburg's surname can also be in a nice neat column. So that's what I said to you earlier. You will have to go back and do trial and error. If your output looks like this when you run the program, then you've got to go back and set tab 1, which is the second tab, to a higher number so that it's all nice and neat. Okay. Right, so here's an example. Now, you can't shorten someone's surname because remember, you don't know what their surname is. You're writing code for any length of a surname. Okay, so you need to take into account every eventuality that might be entered. Right, let's have a look at this example here. So the output that I've been showing you is actually from this activity. So we've got a program that says in the BTN process, store input from the user for their name, surname, and amount of money paid for a school tour. Calculate how much the current learner owes for the tour. The tour costs 500 Rand. count the number of entries. Now we should know what that means. Okay, if we're counting the number of entries, and then calculate the total amount outstanding. So here I am counting and keeping a running total again. So immediately I'm hoping that after yesterday, when you see these two lines, there are two words or two terms that are popping into your head. Can you tell me what they are? What should these two instructions make you know immediately is going to be required in this program? I'm not on the tab thing anymore. A global variable, thank you, PC. I'm going to use ink, yes, Vian. And what else do I have to do? What do I have to remember to do? Initialize, yes, well done, you guys are on the ball. So I'm going to need global variables for these amounts. I'm going to need to initialize those variables. So let's have a look. Okay. So when you see this in the question, so here the question says, example of output when John Smith paid 123 Rand and Sue Heck paid 456 and Emma Janse van Rensburg. And the sample output in the question looks like this. This is the next thing that you need to know just from reading the question. I will need to set tabs. Okay. And this is exactly like I showed you earlier, what your tabs are going to look like in the on-activate event of the form. Set two tabs because I have three columns. The first one is going to be quite short because it's only going to come after a number. The second one is going to be longer to take into account that people may have long surnames. And then I output my heading. So the heading is going to appear in the rich edit when my program loads with the #9 between each word to set the tabs or to put the tabs in place. Okay. Right, then the process button asked us to do this. So here's all the stuff that I've just discussed with you. There are my three variables locally declared to get the person's name, surname, and the amount of money they've paid for the tour. Then I calculate the amount outstanding by saying 500 minus the amount that they entered. And once again, if I'm going to count every time somebody's entered how much money they're paying for the tour, count is going to get the value of count plus 1, or somebody told me about ink. We discussed it yesterday. Total gets the value of R total plus R outstanding. So now I'm adding to how much money is still owed for this tour. So therefore, when I see this, I have to know that I have to initialize the variables where. Where does this code have to be? Oh, are you guys zoning out when I talk too much? Okay, good. They need to be initialized in the on-activate event of the form. This code must be in the on-activate event of the form. Somebody's told me private. That's where I'm going to declare them, but I'm going to initialize them in the on-activate event of the form. Okay, then my output is going to look like this. Read output.lines.add, we know. Int to string I count. So my count is going, this is person 1, then person 2, then person 3. So I'm outputting the counter. So I know if I was a third person to capture my details, I'm going to have a number 3 next to my name. Then here we go again, plus #9 for my tab, plus S name, square brackets 1, which we've covered before, plus a full stop, because we're putting the person's initial, full stop, plus S surname, plus #9 for my second tab, plus float to string F R outstanding, and I'm outputting it because it's money, I'm outputting it as FF currency. So 99% of this output statement should be old hat. If 100% of it is, that's even better. Okay, these two symbols here are what force the tabs so that my output is nice and neat. Okay. Like I've discussed earlier, if I'm using the variables in the on-click event of the button, they are declared locally. Those that are being declared or being used in the on-click event of the button and in the on-activate event of the form, then they are non-local or global. And like you guys have already told me, they have to be declared under private so that both the on-activate event of the form and the button can access and use their values. Okay. Then the summary button, this is looking a lot like a lot of the ones we've done already. Calculate the average outstanding amount. Well, the code's there, so I'm not even going to ask you. And display the number of learners that have paid, the total amount outstanding, and the average amount outstanding. So here we've got average declared locally again, because it's the only place I'm going to use it. But it is used to calculate the total amount divided by how many people have captured the information. And my output is pretty simple and straightforward. Again, guys, an exam tip or a test tip. If you look at your sample output, there's nothing, absolutely nothing in the instructions about leave a space open over here or put a heading in. But the chances are you will get marks for noticing that the sample output requires a gap between the columns and the summary information. So take note of those kinds of things. They're important. Okay. Right. The retry button, clear all the objects on the form and ensure that all values are reset to start an average calculation for a new tour. Okay. You could use #10. Yes, Dietlof, most definitely. So Dietlof has said, instead of doing this, why don't you use #10? You can, but your problem in this particular instance is then you would have to put it in this output, which would then mean you'd have a gap after each of these. So in this instance, you can't use #10. You could in others, but in this particular one, I suppose you could. No, you could. Okay. Then somebody else said, if we don't put a gap, will we lose marks? The possibility is there, Sandra. Yes. Okay. Very often, that is the kind of thing that your teachers will put into a test to make sure that you're paying attention. Okay. Won't the summary be output for each person? No. The summary is only because it's on a separate button. The summary is only going to output after lots of people have entered. I'll show you the program now to show you exactly how it works. Okay, right. Now, as I said to you earlier when I was talking about the on activate and setting the tabs. So we know that your reset button has to clear everything. So you have to set the total and the count back to 0. You have to clear the rich edit. And then you have to reset the tabs. So these lines of code, paragraph.tab count, paragraph.tab 0, paragraph.tab 1, and the heading are just copied straight from the onActivate event of the form into the reset button. Okay. And then you need to clear your other edits and set the focus back to the edit. Okay. All right. So Reese, you've made a comment to say so much. I'm assuming you're saying there's a lot of code in the reset button. Yes, but from there, from I count gets the value of 0 to there is just copy paste. Okay. Go to the onActivate event of the form and copy paste. So it's only 4 lines that you have to type yourself. Okay. Right. Let's have a look at the actual Delphi program. So here we have our Delphi program. If we press F12 to go into the unit and we scroll all the way up, there are my global variables declared under private. Okay, Ruben, you wanted to know about how do I get to the onActivate event of the form. I select the form, I go to the events tab, I find the onActivate event in the list there, and I double click, and there's the onActivate event of my form. So there I've set my 2 tabs, I've given them values, I've put my headings in, and I've initialized my counter. Okay. Yes, onCreate would also work. Okay. The onCreate is actually easier to access because all you have to do is double click the form and you get into the onCreate event. And it's also in the, yes, it's also here. Okay, so either you can double click, but the on create, remember we spoke about default events for components. The on create event is the default one for a form. Then my process button, as we've discussed already, I'm not going to take a long time for this. There's the code I've spoken to you already, exactly like we saw in the PowerPoint. Okay, there is the summary button. Only the average is locally declared. There's all my output with my open line. And then there is my retry button. And all of this was just copied. Look, same code. Okay, this code, copy, paste into the retry. Okay. Sorry, ma'am, but I do not understand why we use square brackets. Does it indicate the number of tabs there are? Okay, that's a very good question, and you're probably not the only one that's worrying. Okay, the number of tabs is 2. So in this program, I've said set 2 tabs. Then I have to number them. So I've got to say which tab is getting which value. So how far am I setting this tab? And this indicates which tab it is. So this is the first tab. And then the second tab is numbered number 1 because Delphi numbers things starting from 0. Okay. So the square bracket 0, the same as, if you remember, if we have a look here, okay, but this is text, so it works slightly differently. S name square brackets 1 is going to return the first character of the person's name because of the 1. Now this works the same way, except for the fact that because it's a Delphi component, I have to start with the 0. Okay. All right, now Ryan has asked me for FF currency, will it automatically use Rand? Now again, that's a good question, because if my computer was set to show currency as dollars, then my computer would show a dollar symbol and not an R. Okay, so it all depends on how your computer is set up. FF currency takes its value from your system. Okay, RJA, you've asked about how does counting work. All I'm going to say is go and look for yesterday's video and watch that on YouTube because I explained it all there. Okay, but basically you're just adding 1 to your counter every time. Okay, right, I'm going to close this program because I'm going to open another one just now to show you something else. So let's go back to PowerPoint for now. This is a quick, brief one. And you should hopefully know this because we've also discussed it in other videos, but just to recap quickly, what is the difference between disabled and invisible? Okay, when you set the disabled property of a component, it means you can see it, but you can't click on it. You can't do anything with it. Okay, and there's only a .enabled property. There isn't a .disabled property. No, there won't be lessons tomorrow and Sunday, Jared, only during the week. Okay, and I'll give you a whole lot of stuff to remember at the end of this lesson. Okay, so a few things that are changing. Enable is to then set the enabled property to true. Okay, disabled, can't see, enabled. Okay, I don't know what you're looking at. Okay, there is no there is only an enabled property. You need to click on Reese, you're sending me a just our class related question. I'm trying to set up with those email addresses how we do the work from now. So you need to respond to those. Okay, the invisible property means that the object cannot be, the visible property, listen to me, means that the component cannot be seen on the form at all. So enabled property, you can see it, but you can't do anything with it. The visible property, you can't even see it. Okay. Right, here's another activity. What I'm doing here is I am just showing you the question and what the form will look like. This is one chance that you get, those of you who don't have the books, I've put the question on the screen here so that you can just do this activity to practice all of these skills that I'm teaching you. Okay. So I'm not going to read the whole thing. Callum, I'm not 100% sure what page it is on. I would guess probably about 43 or 45. I know you guys can't see it, but if somebody can look in their books and tell me what page, there we go. Thank you. We've got a whole lot of people wide awake. I love it. It's on page 46. Okay. All right. So Bridget, they're answering so quickly. With the reset button, must you copy and paste your things, or can you just clear everything? No, you must copy and paste the code from the on activate event of the form and clear everything. Okay, but you have to have a look at the question and what it's telling you to do. And then you can discern from there how much of the code you need to copy. Okay, somebody said, is the form in the Delphi file? For this one, yes. If you download the data files on the link that I'll show you at the end, the program is already created for you. It's in the load shedding folder. Okay, so this is the question part of it. Okay, I'm just putting this up briefly so that if you go to YouTube later, you can have a look at this. You can pause it if you don't have the book. Okay. So look carefully at things. I know things that people miss. Look at what the wattage costs, or it's R3.50 per watt. Again, look there, count, calculate the total. Guess what we're doing here? And then you're given sample output to test your program to make sure that your answers match. Okay. Yes, I know Callum can't give people the link, Ruben, but that's just too bad for today. They should all have it by now. They can also use Google. Here's what you have to do in the summary button, and there's our disable and visible instructions. Okay, remembering that maybe the language might be different to the code that you have to use. There we're calculating the average again, and we're displaying the information in the rich edit. Okay, then your reset button, you're enabling the button. Okay. Lutando, I'm not sure what you're asking me. What is the topic? If you're talking about the topic of this video, we've already looked at how to set tabs. We briefly covered the enabled and disabled property of components. Now I'm just going through all the questions involved. You can purchase the textbook, Ronnie, off the ITSE school website. Okay, but that's all coming at the end of the PowerPoint presentation. Right, so what I've done now, if you just search Delphi free download, you can get it. Okay, so here is the solution to the activity. Again, I'm putting it on the screen quickly. I'm not discussing it at all. I'm putting it here so that you can look at each question, work through the activity, and then check the answers. Okay, so this is the calculate single button. Here is the summary button, and here is the reset button. Okay, so hopefully I've shown it long enough that you can be quick with the pause button if you need it. There is the on activate event of the form. So it's only got the initialization of the variables, but then there's a lot of other stuff that you have to do in the reset button. So pay attention. Okay. All right, somebody said 2 slides back quickly. So this one. Okay, remember that once this is uploaded on YouTube, you can then go and just pause the video to see. Okay, so there's your reset button instruction, tells you exactly what to do. And then there is the actual code that you need to put into the reset button. Okay. All right. Yes, the slides will be on the website, Lauren. I'm not sure how long it's going to take for them to be uploaded, but yes, they will be there. Okay. Right. Constants. So this is the next thing that we're going to look at today. Now, if you initialize, for now, it will always be under the on activate or the on create. Once we start looking at loops, it could change. But for what you are doing now, yes, you initialize your counters and your totals when your form loads, either in onActivate or in onCreate, depending on what instructions you're given in a test or an activity. Okay, right. So constants are the opposite of variables. They work in the same way, but you can't change their value during the running of the program. Okay, so let's have a look at exactly what the rules are, and then hopefully I will explain as we go along. So constants are declared below the var for your form or locally in an event. So I'll show you where the below the var of your form is just now. Okay. To indicate to Delphi that you're now declaring a constant, you use the word const. So just like locally in the onActivate event of your form, locally in the onClick event of a button or anything like that, you're going to type var to indicate you're declaring a variable. When it's a constant, you're going to type const. Then your constant declaration has an equal sign. So when we declare a variable, we would say R price colon and its data type. When you declare a constant, you give it a value. So you say, right, the price of this is going to be 205.99. Okay, and Delphi will automatically know that because of the way I've put this, this is a real value. If I want to do it as text, I have to put inverted commas around it, and Delphi will know that this is a string value. Initial is a character because there's only one. So here, Delphi can tell what the data type is. Okay, another important thing, your variable or your constant, can never ever be on this side of the gets the value of sign. It can only give a value. It cannot receive a value, because as soon as I put it here, I'm trying to give it a new value, and that breaks the rules of constant cannot change. Okay, I want to point out why we would use constants. Okay, the idea behind a constant is if you've got a value in your program that you use a lot all over the program. So I'm going to use a very recent example to explain it to you. Let's say you wrote a program that was there to calculate how much money somebody had to pay back on a loan from the bank. Now, in order to work that out, you would have to, in your program, write the code for what the prime borrowing rate or the prime lending rate is. Now, at the beginning of this year sometime, or actually no, a few weeks ago, the prime lending rate was 8.75%. So if you'd written a program to calculate what somebody, let's say someone buys a car and they get the prime lending rate, and you are working out how much they're going to pay every month, and you had put 7.75% in as a value all over the place, in the on-click event of this button and on the on-click event of another one, and you put it all over your program, then our government has very kindly, to try and help us in these tough times, just dropped the lending rate by 1%. So now they've dropped it to 7.75%. If you had written this program with that value all over it, you'd have to now go back to the program and change everywhere that you had typed 8.75%, you'd now have to go back and change it to 7.75%. If you declared a constant like this, and you'd called it prime rate equals 8.75, how many places would you have to go and change it to 7.75? Yes, you guys are listening. One place. So instead of everywhere in your program, you open up, you find the constant declaration, you change that to 7.75%, and you're golden. You've just done an update to your expensive program that potentially everybody's using. Okay, so that's the value, that's the reason why we use constants. Okay, you have to be aware that as examiners and teachers, we can't always manufacture a situation like that. So we may very well ask you to declare a constant to use in a test and an exam that you only use in one place, because we want to test whether you know how to declare and use a constant. So sometimes if you see questions that look a bit silly, we're sorry. Okay, right, now we're on to the exam tips. And what I want to point out here, and I'm going to use my Delphi program to explain it, is I've mentioned to you already that if you read in a question about an input box, so when your paper asks you to get input from the user and they say use a dialog box, we've now discussed this ad nauseum, it means use an input box. If, however, they ask you to use a dialog box for output, it means you need to use a show message. Now, a show message, okay, I'm going to do it this way. Sorry, guys, I'm now making you wait. A show message is a different component that I haven't shown you up until now, but I want to just have this very simple program to show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so here's my program that asks the user to enter their name. It's very simple. I'm going to show you how it works. Okay, when Delphi operates. Okay, so in the edit, I type my name. Then if I click on the show an input box, if you have a look here, I've written an input box that says, Karen, using my name, please enter your lucky number. And I've put the default value because my lucky number is 28. And I click OK. There's my lucky number being displayed in a label. A show message looks like this. Welcome to my program, and Karen is on the new line. There's no input for me to put in a show message. It's just giving me a message. So let's have a look at this complicated code that we have here. Few things I want to point out to you. First of all, this we know, reading from the edit. I have to convert my input from the input box to an integer, okay? And then I output it into inum. What I do want to show you is what I did here. Okay, so lucky number is the heading of my little input box, but I have used the variable in the output of my input box. So I've taken the name that I read from the edit and I've put it in here. So it's going to say, when I typed Karen, it said, Karen, please enter your lucky number, because it took what was in the variable and it's added it to my input box. My show message is so very simple. The code is show message, open brackets, whatever the message is, which I declared as a constant. Okay, there's the var in my program. So this is where I declare my constant. So my constant is declared as welcome to my program. My show message is put that message plus a space plus #10 and my name. And the final result is, if I type my name again and I click show a message, it pops up with, oopsie, why did that happen? Because my name gets read in there. Okay, why is it declared there? Does that make it global? Yes, Dietlof, declaring the constant under, sorry, okay, let me get back here. So declaring it under here makes it global, yes. I could have Control X to cut it. Because I'm only using it here, I could have put it there with the greatest of ease. Okay, Savage, #10 means put my name on a new line in my show message. Okay, so if you look at the output, okay, now I'm Superman. Input box, see, Superman, please enter your lucky number. Click OK, show message, welcome to my program, and Superman is on the new line. Okay, how would you get, okay, Sandra, I'm not sure what you're asking. How would you get to the constant? You just call it, if that's what you mean. So it's the same way as you would call a variable in your code, you just call the constant's name. Okay. Is there a way that a button can become visible only if you click one of the buttons first? Absolutely. So what you would do is you would put the code to click the button or to make the button visible in the other button. Okay. Constants, back to our exam tips, always look at the given code in your paper to see if there's code that should be constant. So sometimes what happens is you would be given this program, and I would have declared this already as part of your program files, and then you will be expected to use it. So look for this word constant to be sure to know what to do. Okay, right. What did we learn today? Set tabs to space them out in a rich edit starting from 0. Constant's value does not change. An input box is a dialog box for input, and a show message is a dialog box for output. Okay, now a couple of things I need to show you. Over here is, and I'm going to try and actually click on it. This is a Google form that Africa Teen Geeks is asking you to please fill in. Okay, I'm opening it up here on my window so that they can capture some information from you. Okay, it is purely voluntary. You do not have to fill the form in. Okay, you can skip it if you want to. Okay, there's the link. I've pasted it in the chat if you can get access to it. But understand that one of the reasons why they want to capture this is because maybe if newspapers and media and that kind of thing would like to interview and ask you questions about your experience from these lessons, then they need your contact details. So the link is in the chat. It's also here on the form. It will also be on the website. Okay, I need to hurry up, otherwise I'm going to get into trouble. On Monday, we're moving to MS Teams. Please look out, sign up for the emails to be told what's happening, and look out on Facebook for how you can join the lessons from Monday. Okay, we're looking at tabs in an activity, different types of errors, and we're finally going to start on if statements. Okay, don't forget these hashtags. Please keep an eye. The output box, okay, not an output box, it's called a show message. Okay, there's the example code, show message welcome plus SNAP. Okay, all right, guys, that's it for today. My classes, please get onto those email addresses I sent you and pass the message on to your friends so that we can get working from Monday as well. Okay, thank you for coming. I will see you on Monday.